welcome to G.P.S. Once again, I'm your host, Uven Ekpo, and I am with Q.
Cute.
So, Q, how's your week been going?
Okay, so today is Saturday, so my week so far has been pretty interesting. Started a new job this week. I'm working at Caps for Del Rosa. Yay. It's weird because all my life I've had like kind of a mixed relationship when it comes to children, as we talked about with the
Yeah.
last podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's never been like a dislike or anything, like I would harm them or anything like that. Like I'm not crazy or weird. Like I love kids. It's just I I know like in my life I've got like tired of like being around them
Mm-hmm.
because like when I was growing up, my grandma did foster care, not foster care. She did what do you call it, like daycare.
Okay.
And then like I had all these cousins and stuff, and they had babies, and they were babies, and I was just that one. Like Granny, like kind of taught us young how to be articulate or whatnot, and to know things a little beforehand. So and responsibility, and that Jesus is always watching. So not all kids had that.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes parents would just come, hang out, drop their kids all off in a room with me. They'd go be doing whatever adult stuff they were doing, like playing cards or whatever, or talking, or if my mom was having a party, like they'd go off and like drink and do whatever. But I'm just stuck in a room, just watching everyone else's kids, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is not good. But then so I was like, wow, I can't believe that like the opportunity that came up, because it really was just opportunity. Like Brian was like, hey, I got a job for you, and I was like, oh, okay, what is that? And he was like, oh, we're doing Caps, and I'm like, oh, okay. So it's like nice. It's just ironic that the opportunity that has fallen upon me has been back with children. So it's been pretty cool because like I feel like it's all about a good mindset thing, and I love like the contrast. With kids, you kind of have to have good cop, bad cop, like
Yeah.
because if they don't see like black, they're not gonna know like what white is like. They don't see white, they're not gonna know what black is like, and it's like, well, like metaphorically speaking. And so I have some of my coworkers. They're kind of just like they've been there for a while, and they have like what they call like these bad kids or whatever. But that's just like we all say that like, oh,
Yeah.
this kid's bad, and so they'll like be doing just normal kid stuff, but it's not appropriate for school. And so some people just look at it like from the job standpoint. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want you to get in trouble. We're not gonna do it. So when they just go at them like nah 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 whatever, and I come back alongside with like, hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. Come on, it's like a gentle voice, just kind of sweep it over. The kids just kind of respond to that, and it's pretty cool. And I've been like meeting parents and stuff, and it was just really crazy how this whole thing happened. It was just really quick. Like I just was like not working, and then he called me up and was like, hey, get this and this, and I'm like, all right, well I have this but not this. He's like, all right, we'll get this and this, and then now you're gonna start working. And I'm like, okay. So I just got it, and it started working, and I'm like, wow, I'm just up here every day. Like this whole week has just been me up there with the kids, and I was like, learning their names, and I even like the second day, right? The guy who I was supposed to be partnered with, he didn't show up. Like he called off. So I was just there running a class by myself, and it was so weird because I was like, wow, I just got here yesterday. And so the way it circles around is that like they mix the kids up by different grades or whatever, not the same grade. It's just like you have like 3 or 5
Yeah.
like sixth graders, and you got like a couple of kindergartners, whatever, and everything in between. And so they circle like from like different lessons they're supposed to have. They're supposed to have physical activity,
Yeah.
education, no, academics, and then like art. So they like circle through those. And I'm doing physical education with the kids, ironically. Bloop. But like I'm out there, and it's supposed to be me and Kendall, but like Kendall called off, so I'm just out there, and they're like, let's play a game, and I'm like, well, I had a game set up in my mind because like the day before when Mr. Kendall wanted them to play a game, they just kept running off, grabbing basketballs, and wanted to play basketball.
Yeah.
So I'm like, ooh, let's incorporate something that they want to do with something they have to do. So I'm like, all right, if they want to play a game, we're gonna make it a basketball game. So then I get there, but I didn't realize like the demographic of the children, like in height and strength and stuff. We were gonna play a full-on basketball game. We were gonna do what we did the day before. After he got tired and was like, all right, cool, go do free time. 3 of the kids came to me, and I would ask them a math question because I know they're working on math right now, and the one to get it right would take a shot, and the first one like however many points would win. But then it turns out that like if the whole class is doing that, it becomes kind of like confusing because like some of them, like I said, are like kindergartners, so they're like this big, And then some of them are sixth graders, so they're like that big. And the sixth graders are like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather go sit down. And then like the kindergartners who can't reach the hoop are like, I want to play, or they're like, but it's too big, and it's like, okay. So I kind of was just like, we set up this one game. Had that game set up because every day you're supposed to have like 2 games, and the other game was like midnight, where some of them are you know midnight, right?
I don't think so. I probably know of it, but didn't know the name.
So midnight is where like you have a bunch of chickens, right, and then you have the foxes, and then the chickens are like, what time is it? And the farmer says what time it is, and they take that many steps forward. So if it's 5 o'clock, they take 5 steps forward, and they're getting closer to the chicken, to the wolves or whatever. Then they take like it's 2 o'clock, 2 more steps until they get to like a certain point. Then the teacher or whatever will go midnight. And at midnight, of course, that's when all the foxes come out to eat the chickens.
Okay.
So they run and they eat as many chickens as possible until there's no more chicken. And so yeah, we played that and they liked it a little bit. So they were like trying to play, and it's just the hardest part is like understanding that genuinely I wouldn't want to do something I didn't want to do either. But it's like, why do you want me to do this? Because I get paid to tell you to do this, you know? And it's like, it's different if I was like a science teacher or math teacher or something. It's like, well, because you need to learn so that you can grow. But it's really just like, hey, I want you to play this game so that you can say you did something physical today and don't turn into a pile of mush when you go home, you know? So it's like, yeah, that's the difficult part. But I'm just coming at it with an approach of like gentleness and stuff and being cool. And sometimes I gotta like yell, but I don't yell. I just do what my grandma used to do. Or like she just like, yeah, with her voice or whatever. And it's just like, all right, thanks. That was great. But then yeah, so that's been an interesting journey. And then on top of that, I'm getting ready to, like I said, do the Amazon. So just trying to work out that schedule.
Okay.
And then my fiance is working now too, so we trying to work out like having time to talk to each other, and then like having time for work, and then she has school, and then I'm supposed to go back to school, and then helping out at home because I just moved back in with my family, and I'm just like, yo.
Yeah, it sounds tiring.
A little bit, yeah, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, but
how was your week? My bad.
It's been busy. Just running back and forth with work and a lot of things that I have to do, paperwork with clients and things like that, and then just running back and forth at the school. And a little bit overwhelming, even with, like I said, trying to move and getting stuff ready. And there was a moment in time where I was just like, I don't know, I'm just tired, and all this stuff is overwhelming. I was just looking at everything that was going on. And this is something that I said when we first started the podcast, which I have to put my mindset back on, that is focusing on the good. Because now, even when I think about it, this week I had a client, well, I'll say a friend now because he was a client years ago, but a friend who called me just yesterday, and he was telling me good things that have been going on in his life. And he's like, I'm calling you too because I remember I called you 2 months ago when everything was going bad and things weren't going right, and you just told me to pray and seek God more during that time. And when I did that, stuff started to become more clear, and I changed what I was doing, and now I'm back working, and I'm getting back into school and doing X, Y, and Z. And when he said that too, I don't even remember telling him that. I don't even know exactly what I told him. I was just like, okay, God. So it was one of the good things. Like, no matter even what I'm going through, I gotta focus on what God wants me to do. And it's tough, even with everything in the world. But if we just focus on what God wants us to do, things will come out for the glory of God. We just can't focus on what we want to do, especially in the world, because then we'll just get wrapped up, because God has a different objective for us. Even when we think stuff isn't going right, God's already putting stuff in place. And it just reminded me of that because it just like I wasn't thinking about any of that, and then he called me just to tell me how things have been going better, and just reminded me of just like, yeah, I can't focus on what I need to do in the world. I need to focus on what I need to do for God, and God's gonna just make a way and just open things up for me. And it even had me even thinking too, just where God wants me to go, because God had placed something in my spirit, and I was just like, okay, I'm working two jobs and doing this, but now it's to the point, it's just like, if I'm fully gonna do what God wants me to do, I have to make more time for Him and be intentional about that. And even just going back to something that you were even saying, Keon, with even just kids and working with kids. One thing that I noticed was, because I get the same reaction with kids, is just they naturally gravitate towards me. At one school I go to, and this is just for therapy, not teaching. For therapy, I see a couple kids. They're like 6, 7. For some reason, I just see those couple kids, but the whole school knows me, and everyone wants to come. Like I'm a celebrity. I'm just like, leave me alone, little kid.
Leave me alone, little kid.
But I don't say that, but just like, cause they're just like follow me. I'm just like, oh, okay. And the teachers are like, oh, they just throw them at me because I work well with them, and it's something that I don't even have to try. Going like what you said, it just you be yourself, and you don't try to do anything extra, and the kids respond to that. Cause I think kids are definitely people who the ones who can tell if you're purposely trying to act cool or purposely trying to impress them.
Well, you gotta remember, like, back when you're in school, or like kids in school, they're constantly at that stage, right? I forget who it was, not Maslow, it was the other guy. The Russian sounding one, Tchaikovsky, the one that did the zone of in the developmental stages of like children, right? I'm trying to remember it was one of the psychologists.
There's a couple, so I just don't know what, because a couple of them did some developmental stages of children.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
But I'm talking about the one where like they're talking about like you're at that school level and you feel like everyone is a different. You're developing like your identity, I guess. And so it's like you're at that age where like you constantly look like you get dressed in the morning. It's like I want to wear this. I want to look fly, so no one's gonna roast me. No one's gonna say this. If I do this, like I remember last week Johnny got like clowned for that.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have to constantly be reading people all the time and know like, oh, you about to come give me trouble. It's like, oh, I gotta be good. You're always on guard, you know. And so when it comes to that, it's the same thing with like adults. It's like you're just another big person, just up here doing whatever you're doing. So it's like if you're coming here, they're on guard. They're scanning you because at any given moment, they have to be ready to scan somebody. Because they say, oh, you're ashy. Oh, I'm ashy, but your mama did this last week, and it's like, yo, chill out. So I think that's why they're always on guard. They can read like, oh yeah, look at him, he's being fake, or oh look at him, he thinks he's cool. Like say you walk up with like a $100,000 outfit on or whatever, and you sit in front of them, it's like there's no connection there. They're just gonna look at you like, what you doing there?
Yeah.
But if you just show up like a normal guy with like your sweats or your shorts, it's like, hey.
And it's not even that. Even if you did show up with like, let's say you just like to dress that way. If you just present yourself in more personal, going back to what you even said too, when you just said at the place you're at, they're the kids that are labeled the bad kids, and they know they're labeled and they know people are judging them. But if you just come to them like a normal person and just talk to them, they're gonna accept you more, be like more responsive. And even like you just said, there are some adults, and I've seen this in group homes, even parents. It's just like when a child is labeled, they'll continue to throw those labels out and yell at them and be like, oh, you're just like this, or you're just like that, or you always get in trouble, you're going to be just like your dad, or X, Y, and Z. And parents and just even people in group homes, which they should know better, you give kids those labels, they're going to sometimes just be like, oh, this is who I am. Especially if you tell this to a 7 or an 8-year-old, they'll take on that role, like, this is what you expect of me, and this is what the teacher expects of me, this is what they expect of me, so this is what I should be doing. You know better than me, you're the adult, so obviously you're right, so let me just play that role.
Exactly. And it's like children
And
at
then,
that age, they're already. It's like if you imagine just like those mixers for the taffy and you put the different colors for the candy. That's what they're at right now. They're at that mixing stage. And so it's like you're literally sending them up here to learn and to soak up as much as possible. And everything they're going to get is going to be a part of them. So for the 1 second, you just want to squirt in like, you know, something new and think like, oh, it'll come out later. We'll add as much else later. It's like it can, but it's not going to. It's still going to be somewhere deep in there. And it's like you pick the worst time in the life to try to like just toss these out. But it's because a lot of times humans by nature love to label things, and it keeps us classified, keeps things good. But then like at times when you have no better things to say, you don't know better yet. Especially people who, because everything's about maturity and knowledge. Like there's adults who don't know the power of words. You know,
Yes.
the Lord tells us like about the power of words. But we don't realize. I guess we just don't take it as seriously as as
It's
we
a
can.
double-edged sword. It could either bring up someone or break down someone, and they don't even realize the small things that the small things they say. How could it even just have a huge detriment on a child, a huge detriment on even adults? It's just like you just say something because you feel it, and then you don't realize the damage that you could have caused. Even with some of our biases, it's just like, oh, well, I'm going to treat this person differently, not knowing how it's going to affect them.
Yeah.
Especially kids or people who already are kind of gauging like, oh, this is an adult and he already views me some type of way. So, and I think that's how come, like we were talking about raising a child, if you raise a child in the right way, you raise a child in God's ways, he won't depart from God. But also, there's another verse that I want to look up that talked about for those who cause a child to stumble.
Oh, that
And,
yeah, it'd be better to have like the I got you. I got to look it up so we can.
Okay.
Oh, did you find it?
Oh no, I was gonna look it up, but go ahead.
Got you.
But
I
yeah,
know what you're talking about.
but it's a perfect example because just like causing a child to stumble could just be what we say, how we talk to them. Like how you were just saying good cop, bad cop. I've seen group poems like I was talking about, and probably you've seen this too, where people just are just like, well, no kid's gonna talk to me like this.
Yeah.
And they're just fully on attack mode. And sadly too, with some children who, and this is how come we gotta approach everything with love and patience, because with some kids who have experienced some crazy stuff in life by, let's say, their parents, for example. I had a child that I worked with that his mom, he got taken away from his mom, and he was 5 when I met him, but his mom threw acid on his face. So he had his whole face had a whole burn mark. And with that too, that kid, when he was at the group home where he was at, he was always aggressive with authority figures. And the authority figures like, oh, you're not going to talk to me like that. And they would get aggressive back at him. But they didn't realize that his mom threw acid on his face. So if you get aggressive or even just have an aggressive tone, the child has PTSD and he's going to physically fight for his life because what he had to deal with. And it sucks, but then he fights for his life because that's how he feels, and then people continue to label him because like, oh, look what he did. Why did he do that? And then we don't even realize like with the stuff he'd been through.
And hold on, I'm gonna stop you there because people don't even really ask. Like they'll ask, but they're not really inquiring. Oh, that's the verse, by the way.
Okay.
Inquiring why they did that, and I feel like that would change so many, not only kids' lives but people's lives. If
Adults, like,
instead of when something happens to us, we just like to take, input, react like we're a machine. But it's like the way it works. Like you're supposed to take, be a little intuitive, like deep into it. Figure like why did this happen, and then not just why did that happen. Okay, whatever. I don't care why it happened. Why did it happen? Get some real understanding, and then move accordingly. Because like if you, for example, it's like when you turned around, you feel just a ball hit your head, right? Like, there's two different types of people. It's like the first person is just like, yo, you hit me with a ball, let's go, let's fight now. But then the second person stops, looks at their surroundings, and realize, while having a full-on conversation under a basketball hoop, of course I got hit in the head with a ball. And that's like that with your daily life situations. But we don't do that with children. We just take everything they do so personally. And that's what irritates me, because it's like, you feel like, hey, I'm paid to do this. I've gotten whatever qualification it was for me to be here. I'm trying to make my money. I don't want to get in trouble. It's all about me. And you are going to get what's good for you, and you're going to take it, and I don't want to hear what you have to say. And it's like, you got to realize from their point of view, you know, like, I'm here, I'm doing what I want to do, but also I'm just trying to navigate life. You know, you want to do what you want to do. Of course I want to do what I want to do, you know? I'm younger than you. I haven't got to do anything yet. And so it's like, chill out.
And then some of the stuff is not even their fault. Going back to the stuff they learned, it's just like, now you got to be that example to teach them something different. Maybe they only know aggressive.
Yeah.
So it's your point to teach that love that Christ showed us. So it's for us to say, okay, you're angry. You think all men should be angry and all men should yell. I'm gonna throw a wrench in that. And though you're angry, I'm gonna show you the love of Christ. And that just throws a wrench in everything. I could just tell you, even just with clients I've worked with, where they say, like, dad's not in the picture, dad's always angry, or dad's X, Y, and Z, but they respond differently to me. And that even goes back, like how you said, they respond differently to you. It's just like, it's because you're approachable, you're showing them the love of Christ.
And that's actually what Jesus did with, like, the towns, because and that's what really messed a lot of the Jews up back then, because they were expecting, like, oh, you know, like, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, like, everyone who's a king is supposed to look like this. Like, you see Herod, you see the Pharaoh, you see these people is like, they have the gold, they have this, they have that. But then he comes through and is like, nah, a king can be humble. A king can wash your feet. A king is supposed to serve you. You know, like, a preacher, a pastor, a teacher, a guidance can come and, you know, change your life, not just be a burden. I'm not trying to take your money. I'm not trying to do this, you know. I can do the Lord's work and, you know, still be, like, not separate, but, like, still be humble, you know, while doing this great work. Like, he was God and still was more humble than some people who were just like, he's like, bro, I made you. Like, why are you being this way to me, you know? And so I feel like the way the Lord came with not the Christians, they weren't Christians yet, but the way the Lord came to the people, like, to, you know, like, I don't know what to call them, like, the Jews, or, like, the people of biblical age who we were conversing with, like, making Christians and stuff. Like, the way he approached them was different than most men out there, you know, and so that's why he was so well received, and that's what he tells us to do. And I feel like he was approaching his children, you know, he didn't birth them, you know, but he was a guiding part, like, they're his children. Same thing, like, when a teacher or whatever hits a classroom, like, I didn't birth you, but you're my kids for however long I have you or whatever, right? And so it's like, I have to come through and know that I'm going to be different. I got to come, like, 'cause the Lord will come to you how you need to be approached. Like, Saul was a murderer, you know? He didn't, you know, come to him in, like, a dream in the middle of the night like he did, like, Joseph or whatever, you know? He didn't sell him into slavery or whatever. He didn't send him in the wilderness for 40 years. He hit him as hard, boom, blind, right? Changed his life. Then he started tripping again or whatever. He wanted to experience something else, like, pierced his side, like, with the, like, I forget how you describe it, but, like, he let him see the everlasting, and, like, it like pierced him. He hit him real aggressive when it came to things like that, you know. But then, like, there's other people where he had to come real gentle, like Peter. He's like, you know, you're gonna deny me 3 times. I'm just letting you know. Just, you know, by the way, hey, you wanna go get some fish and bread? You know, just, like, chill. And he was like, no, I'm not. And he's like, afterward, hey, I forgive you. Just go feed my people. Just go give them what they need. You know.
And that's one of the most. It's crazy because, like we always talk about, this wasn't scripted, but that even ties into something we talked about last week when we even just talked about how authority figures will be like, don't question me, don't do this. Children shouldn't. How did they say it?
Seen, not heard.
Yeah, children should be seen, not heard. Christ wanted to hear you. God wanted to hear you, and even when people questioned Christ, he embraced those questions. When he came back from when he rose from the grave, and Thomas was just like, if you're Christ, let me see. And then he was just like, okay. I mean, he did say, what we call him doubting Thomas, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's okay that because he just showed like, you need proof. I'm gonna show you. I'm not gonna like yell at you and be like, you don't believe me. You better believe. No, he just like, okay, and he showed them. And there's other people who did question him, and he just told them what to do, or just showed them, and he showed them with love. He wasn't like that. Going back to what you said, the king, like, I don't have to show you anything. I am who I am. No, and actually, he's the only person who could say that, like, exactly. I am. But no, he just like, okay.
Started. Jesus is perfectly balanced. So he had moments where he was just like chill and was just like humble, whatever. And he's always humble. He was never like boastful, but there was times where like the Pharisees would walk up and he was just so witty and smooth. Like we weren't there, but like when you read it and you can just like interpret like, you know, how he's going, or like people sometimes do audio stories and you can hear like Jesus through it, and they'd come up and it's like, yo, for like paraphrasing, it's like, yo, it's Sunday or it's Saturday, it's Sabbath. Like, what are you doing? Like, you healed that man. And it's like, you know, am I not supposed to do my Father's work because it's the Sabbath? Or he's like, he just say something smooth, like, so what? You don't eat on the Sabbath? Or like something. Like, you just be like, oh, so I can't help this man out because it's Sunday. And he just like smoothly like get in there and just make you look silly, but like humbly though. He just ask you a question with a question, and then like just stop, tell you a parable or whatever, and then you know go on about your life. And they're just sitting there like, ugh. But then there was other times where like right before the apostles were going out, and they were like, so when they ask who sent me, what do I say? He was like, just say I am. And he just dropped the mic and he walked off and had some fish and bread. But it's like that's cold, you know. That's just how he is. Just like, so who are you? I am the I am. Okay, now go along now. You know, like that's his like kind. Even his boastful moments are humble. Like he was taking a nap in the middle of a storm, not just a storm on land. He's a storm on a boat. Mind you, this isn't 16th century. This isn't 15th century. This isn't 14th century. This isn't a big boat with like multi-layers and like well constructed. This is probably just like, I'm not gonna say a raft, but like whatever. If you just got enough XP to press upgrade once on a raft, like that's what it was. Like it was like raft, whatever they were in, you know? And so it's just like, it's crazy that he was just chilling on the water. Everything was just probably like, bloop, bloop, just tossing back and forth. And he wakes up like, what are y'all tripping for? I'm just about to go, hey, chill out. And just went back to doing what he was doing. He just told the sky to relax. And it was like, yeah, sure. It just relaxed, you know? It's like God. And of course, this is all just like, you know, New Age colloquial version of the Bible, like abridged. But it's like, that's basically how cool he was. He was so balanced that he came at you the way he needed to. He would never just be like, oh, I'm God. How dare you talk to me like that? What is wrong with you? And just smack you upside the head. You know, we only seen Jesus get mad about one time, you know? And even then, it wasn't because somebody was like talking to him silly. It was because they were disrespecting his dad. Like he got mad for someone else. Technically not someone else, him, part of him. But it's like he got mad for a different version of him. You know, it's like not even himself. And so it's cool the way he does that to like us, his children, right? What gives us the right to not be like that with somebody else's children? You know what I'm saying? Like,
or just even our own children.
Even our own children.
Because even like, actually, I'm even just thinking about it. The example you used too is just like he was asleep in a real storm.
He was knocked out, man.
But and then actually his disciples woke him up and they were freaking out. And I just look at that even just as a parent standpoint, if you could be asleep and your children be acting out and doing something that's not even a big deal, because for that storm, it wasn't a big deal for him. And he just woke up and just was like, he just woke up and just calmed the storm down. He did say like, why are you guys afraid? Yeah. And then he just calmed down the storm. But as parents, like, kids wake us up and we're asleep and they're acting out for something that's not a big deal, and then we make the thing even worse. Now we're screaming like, I'm so tired because X, Y, and Z, because I've been working like 8 hours or whatever, and then you're on them for waking you up.
Again, because a lot of times it's just about me, me, me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Jesus was so perfect, because he's the only person that is literally about me, me, me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never about me, me, me.
Mm-hmm.
Everything up to him being born and dying was about you, you, you.
Mm-hmm.
And parents aren't like that, because it's like they feel like it's about you, you, you. But humans can't genuinely do anything right except wrong, because we tainted like the whole concept of right.
Mm-hmm.
So even when we think we're being like generous and giving and doing the right thing, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just close enough that like you're good, you know, for a human standpoint. But Jesus was the definition of like, this is all for you, you know, anything. I don't care. This is all for you. Take it. You're not gonna take advantage of me, you know, because even like that's where we get it wrong too. We're either gonna like do so much that people are now taking advantage of us, and we're not like, so we're diluting it, we're messing up someone else's life. Or we don't give enough and we're not doing it genuinely for you, and it's just still something about me, and so that we don't come at you, right, or something like that. But it's like Jesus didn't do any of that. Jesus was like, this is all for you, but in due time, you know? And so that's why parents just kind of need to, you know, just learn, like, little things. Like, I feel like, for me, something I like to do, I don't have kids, but like I said, I've been around enough kids that I'll, like, definitely learn. Like, I just ask, like, it's little important questions. And what it does is, like, and people don't want to take the time with children. They feel like it's not patient. Like, yes, if a bomb is dropping and they're like, but why? Pick it up, run, throw it in the car, take off. But, like, if it's not that big a deal, like, take the extra 30 seconds to explain we don't do that because it's bad. You know, just be like, I always ask kids, especially back at the school, like, they'll come up to me and they'll be like, oh, someone called me stupid. Are you stupid? No. Does it matter? No. Go have fun. And then they go play. And it's like, when you ask a confusing question to make them really think introspectively, it's just like, well, why did I come up and tell you that? You know, I know I'm not stupid. Mm-hmm. Or if someone gets hurt, they'll be like, he hit me. Was it on purpose? No. Did it hurt? Yeah. Is he sorry? Yeah. Go have fun. Mm-hmm. And it's like, once you start thinking, and not humans, adults need to do this too. When you start thinking into your own life, it's like, oh, I was late for work. How late were you? I was 2 minutes late. Did you still get your job done? Yeah. Are you fired? No. Why are you complaining? Like, you know, or, oh, like, they messed up my order. It's like, what'd you order? You know, like, cheesecake and fries. It's like, what'd you get? Cheesecake. Did you not get fries? No. Was that the cheapest item on the menu? Yeah. Okay. Like, I don't know, just little stuff like that. Mm-hmm. We get mad over everything. It's like, you just really gotta, cause I think when we're adults, we have the freedom to get mad over everything. Cause we don't even let kids cry about stuff we did to them. You just hit me with a piece of leather. I give you something to cry about. So, you know, as adults, we get mad over littler stuff than that. No one literally walked up and just struck me for what I just decided to do with my own personal life. But I still choose to get mad over all these little things. And it's like, you can always compare what it's like. I feel like that's why God made the system it did. Because he very well could have just had a little factory up there with angels just fitting us, throwing us out. Fitting us, throwing us out. And he's well staffed for that. But he decided to make it that we make each other and have to constantly guide and raise each other constantly. And I think it's done like that so that we get a little taste of a crumb of what it's like to be him. But like, do what he does for us. And I feel like he just gives us little examples of how to love better, you know? Like, you want to better understand me? Here, give it a try. You have a child, you do it. You're in a child's life, you do it. You find a partner, you find a dog or something. Like, he gives you little moments. And it was told to me, like, in the Bible, every character or every person, because it's history, it's not like stories. Every person in all the teachings that you get to see a glimpse of are all little examples of the different parts and personalities of God. Little examples of different parts and personalities of Jesus, right? And so I feel like he does that. Like, it's just because we're not written down. He does that with all of our lives. You have a kid, I'm going to show you what it's like to be me when I was watching over Israel. You know, that was my most hard-headed children. You know, you have, like, what? A stepdad, I'll show you what it's like, you know, to be raised by a stepdad, like by Jesus and Joseph or something like that. It'll just give you opportunities to know him better by you living it. I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry. It's your turn.
No, it's true, and it just, it's so complex, and even just in today's society, these are stuff that we talk about now when we look at psychology, sociology, how to raise kids, how to respond to things, what we should do, how we should parent. All this is stuff that psychology, sociology, people are talking about now, acting like it's something brand new when it's not. This is stuff that Christ has done and is shown, and actually psychology, sociology, all of them pull that. The foundation from a lot of stuff they do believe comes from what Christ did do.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just funny because when we even just look at the church, well, some churches don't want anything to do with psychology or sociology. I even would sit there and I would hear some pastor talk about like, oh, because of psychology, the world is going, or we're moving away from God, and all this new stuff is gonna make us move further away from God with all these new things that they're pushing. When that's not the case. Like when we even just look at psychology or sociology, when we're just looking at kids or parenting, an example people like to use is because of psychology, we now can't spank our kids because now we think it's illegal and they can call the cops on us. That's not it. It's more so for those who have been spanked, or I'm even gonna use a different word, who have been beat. Because with parents, this goes in a full circle. Because we have parents who will not even spank, they will beat. And it get to the point where they're beating or spanking, yeah, the child messed up, but they want to cause harm to the child. And that's where you lose everything after that. It's you're so mad where you want to cause harm to a 7-year-old, and you're an adult. You're so mad that you want to cause harm to a 5-year-old, and you're an adult. I think there's something wrong with that if you want to cause harm. You could spank to teach a lesson and a punishment, yes, but now if you're like, I want you to hurt, and that's when just like, even as I'm saying it, I'm like smiling because it's just like,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, when you think about it that way, like, we're not saying you guys can't punish children and even just spank them. It's just more so if you're spanking or punishing them to have them physically feel harm, that's where it's just like you're going too far.
Here's an easy guide for it. If you punish your child in any way, whether you hit them, like, or you take something away, or you do like any sort of punishment or negative reinforcement or positive, any of that to get them back to like what they're doing, and you feel some sort of like cathartic relief after, you most likely are doing this with the wrong intent. And this is why my grandmother, like, which my mom wasn't allowed to hit me. Like, that sounds weird, but I was raised by my grandma, my mom, my aunt, and they ran it like a kind of like a weird team-based player thing, where each person had a role or whatever, and it was weird. I talked to them about that. That's something different. But it's like, my mother used to spank me or whatever, but she was like an ex-gangbanger. She used to be in the streets fighting, doing all this stuff. So when she gets mad, she just kind of just snaps and reverts back to that. Yeah. And she would just start like, firing on me or whatever. But like nothing too crazy. She just would like, she was heavy-handed. She didn't know how to like, you're supposed to have restraint, like restrain the hit. Yeah. I'm not supposed to like hit a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old the same way I would sock a grown man trying to like steal my groceries or something. I don't know, right? Yeah. And so like you kind of have to have that level of control. So my grandmother would always do it, like the punishment or whatever. And what she taught us was you're supposed to calm yourself down first and then punish. You're not supposed to punish and then go try to find a calm down. Now, if it's something immediate, like, oh, you're about to grab this piping hot stove, you snatch the hand away, you take a deep breath, now they're out of harm's way. They're just sitting there looking at you, now they're scared. And then it's like, you reassure them, like, don't do that. Like, why are you doing that? But it's not supposed to be like, okay, now I just own you. You've made me mad. Like, I'm done with you. Like, that connection is severed now. That's not how it is. It's like, you calm down first because now you know you're coming at it from the right intent. Because it's all a formula. It's simple. It's like negative action, unwanted action, like what can we tie that so that it's no longer something you want to do because it's no longer something we want as like either society or like me as your parent, you know, and then attach that to something negative. You don't like operative conditioning. Or no, classical conditioning.
Yes.
Where it's like you take this thing, the stimulus that you're doing. I like to curse, or I like to run around the house naked, or I like to beat the cat or something. And it's like, or I like to talk back and be disrespectful with any of that, you know? And then that's unwanted. No one wants that. That's not going to have this thing operate right. So what's something you don't like? You don't like pain. You don't like, you know, being yelled at. You don't like fear. You don't like punishment in general. So if we give you like a quick, you know, pat on, like she likes to pat like this part here, like the thigh, like she'll smack your thigh. Because it hurts, but it's not like detrimental in any way. Yeah. It's just sting. It's just a, you know, piece of flesh. So she'll like pop you like with a spoon or whatever, and then now you associate like, okay, well every time I do that, it's like boom. But it's just all about intent. Everything you do is about intent. Like, and we learn that like even from God. Everything He did was intentional. Nothing He does is just arbitrary. Even when it seems arbitrary, it's like it has a purpose and a plan. Like, duh, He's like the greatest strategist. So that's how you have to be. You have to come intentional on the things that you do, and the children will respond to that because it's like, duh, like what else are they gonna do, you know?
And it even goes back to going back to being intentional and how we were talking about the tongue, and the tongue as being a double-edged sword. And even biblically, it does say we need to be slow to anger, because when we're quick to anger, that's when we do some of that stuff. Like, ideally, if you talk to a parent and say you're so mad that you want to cause harm to a 5-year-old, they don't think like, they're not thinking that in the moment. It's just like, I'm so mad, I'm just going to do it. Without having that time, and you said it perfectly, having that time to think it through and just be like, no, this isn't what you do. I mean, an example too is when they went to get Christ, when they were getting ready to crucify Him, and Peter just went like, wait, was it Peter?
Yeah, I think it was Peter. Cut his ear off?
Yeah, he just went like, oh, I'm not going to cut this guy's ear off. And Christ was like, wait, he stopped everything like, wait, we're not doing this.
And fixed his ear right then and there. So, I mean, humans are very, 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 very primitive. And it's like, I'm not like some celestial being. Sorry, I like to say it like that. It's like, but humans are. It's really simple. It's just, it boils down to like, oh, this is what I want. I want like these 5, 6 things or whatever. I want to survive. I want this. How am I going to get there? What thing in my path is stopping one of these 6 or 7 things to happen, you know? And so it's like, you don't think, you just react, because it's like you have like 3 different things running. You have whatever your body does. That's why, like, if I pinch you in the thigh right now, like you kick your leg or whatever, your body is reacting. You have your brain that like reacts to things and makes your tongue like shout out stupid stuff, and like your heart or whatever. But then you have your soul, what's in there, and that's where you think, and God is giving you all these things and is putting you in places you're supposed to be, and it's your connection to Him. And it's like, we don't often use all 3 at the same time. We're often either using 1 or 2, you know, because they're just there, you know. But like, so a lot of times people just let their like physical jump and their brain go without letting their like what's in their actual soul like can take over or whatever, you know. Or sometimes they just let their soul and their body, like they're so passionate about it and they think they're doing the right thing, but they didn't think it through with other logic, you know. And so that's what it is with the kids. It's like, okay, what's something I'm trying to do? I want to sleep. You come in the room and you like jump on my head. You don't think, oh, they jumped on my head because they thought it was soft and squishy or whatever. You know, they're just trying to have fun. You're not empathetic. You're thinking more like, ow, you just jumped on my head. And then boom, you snap and react and you do whatever it is, you know? So that's what it's really about. You gotta first link those as much as possible. And I think the best way to do that is like, God makes it easier. It's just it's a mental thing too. Like the closer you get to Him, the more peaceful you naturally are, you know? Because it's like, you don't get angry reading about the peacemaker, you know? And if you do, the most time you would probably get angry is like reading about like the crucifixion. But even then, it's just like, there's hope in that. Like when you get yourself in that mood, like haven't you noticed like most Christian music, all that stuff, like it's calming. The whole goal is to keep you calm. Because like when we're just on edge and we're just up jumping and moving, we don't make the right choices. We naturally have wrong in us. So when we're left to just do something on automatic ends up being the wrong thing oftentimes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how it is when it comes to like children or like approaching each other, or just like you said, like the psychology of a person is like, it's damaged, you know? We're real primitive. It's just like, I want XYZ and this something's in my way. How do I quickestly possible get rid of that? And so sometimes that's just smacking a kid in the head or something, or whatever reason that mom threw acid on his face. I don't know. I'm sure she wasn't completely crazy, or well, she probably was, but it's like, I don't know. I always feel like everything someone does has some sort of intent behind it. It was just stupid or wrong to all of us, you know. Like, and it's gonna sound stupid, but let me say it like this. Like, I always bring the example of like Judas, you know. Like, everything has a purpose, but it's like Judas was really thinking that, or not Judas. That's a dumb one. That was for another thing I like to explain. What's his name? That's when I explain all things work out. I use Judas, but Saul, right? Paul. It's like he really in his mind was like, yo, I'm doing the right thing, Lord. Like, slash, these aren't your people. You know, they're changing the game. But then the Lord had to just come and tell him, you know? It's like, no, chill out. You have everything like wrong right now.
And even with that, and this goes into sociology or psychology with Saul, for example. He was taught.
Yeah.
He was taught, and God knew this. And I talk him when he got to a certain point, he restructured how he taught. Because he was taught that these people, he was raised by the Pharisees. And they were just like, he was taught by them, so he believed what they believed, and he took it to heart. Like, this is what you have to do. And if you ain't going to walk this way, then you should be executed.
Yeah, people will fight for their truth.
And so Saul didn't get that understanding of God and God's love until God made him blind, and God actually sent someone to show that love.
Yeah.
And God wasn't that's a perfect. God wasn't aggressive to like, you killing my people? Oh, I got something for you. Well, he didn't make him blind, but he didn't be like.
He didn't kill him.
Yeah, he didn't kill him, and he didn't like, yeah, because Saul killed a bunch of people. He was the guy. He was that guy you didn't want to see.
He didn't string him up to to a branch, making him everlasting to be picked up from the chest by a bird. I always think about Zeus. I think it's ridiculous how it's like people think we're crazy for believing in like a natural force, like God that made our existence, that we feel a connection to, yada yada yada, that we have the Bible with these different historical things that line up. But people were just jumping at the heels. They were excited to think like, oh, there's a giant bird with the sun on its head in the sky, just waiting to hurt people when they need to. There's a big, horny old man with lightning waiting to touch anybody and anything, and that's why we're all here. And it's just like, it's crazy how Christians are just seen as crazy for believing in something that like someone, I get it. There are so many different ways people have perverted the word, used it for wrong, and that's why like it just seems like, I don't want a part of that. But it's like then people will go and believe in like other things. Or it's like, to me, it makes perfectly logical sense. And it was put to me like this, like sometimes things that make logical sense like are the wrong thing. Like, we live in a bad world. So like it makes sense. Hey, I don't have money. That guy has a bunch of money. If I kill him, I don't have to deal with him. I can just take his money, Logically, that makes sense. But it's also like, it's wrong.
Yeah, and a better example too would be just like, I was actually just talking to my class about this too, is when you just look at street crime. Yeah. Logically, I need to provide for my family. We have no food. I'm going to go to the store and steal some food. Or, logically, I don't have a job. I need to make money. I could go to McDonald's and make $15 an hour, or I could sell drugs and make triple that. Logically,
it's like more money, less time, less work. Oh,
and provide for my family.
Provide for the family. And so that's, I think I forget. Oh yeah. So the most logical, it makes sense. Like, be an atheist, it's like, I don't have to deal with anybody. I don't have to deal with like any guys, yada, 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 this, that, and the other. But, and that's why I don't, like, when I'm dealing with atheists, it's like, I understand and I let them know. I start them off with like, okay, it makes sense that like what you're doing. but it only makes sense because like you're detached from the original plan, you know. And then so because like it does seem kind of crazy to believe in, you know, something as great as that. Like we live in a cruel, messed up world, so we don't believe in anything that's a truly just good win-win, you know. Like you're looking out for my best interest all the time, and all you want me to do is care about you, you know. It's like, and do what you ask, and what you ask isn't even all that bad, you know. And then it's like, oh, here's the catch, you know. When you mess up, you're gonna stop loving me, right? No. Like I actually use every time you mess up to make you better. Oh, I get it. So at the end of this, I just turn into crumbs and become nothing. No, actually, at the end of this, you come live with me in a golden mansion with golden streets and everything, like, great. Oh, really? Okay. Well, I guess I have to pay something, right? No, only 10%. You don't even have to pay that. That's just something I'm asking you to do if you care. Oh, but if I don't, you can, like, kick me out. What is it, a membership? No, it's not. Oh, but I got to go gather every week, every Sunday, huh? You don't have to, but you're going to want to. And it's just little things like that. Like, no one ever stops and looks at God like that. Like, just simple. Like, all right, bud, I mean, do it if you want. I just made this earth and gave it to you, made everything perfect, but you messed it up and I still gave you a second chance. But if you want, you can keep not believing in me, you know?
Yeah, and everything, like we talked about last week, everything he does say, he does it for our benefit. And we just think, like, well, sometimes we even challenge it, like, well, I don't think it's for my benefit because I want this now.
Yeah.
And if we don't get this now, then it's not helping us, and we are depriving us of what we initially want at the moment. And this even goes back to what we were talking about with psychology. You have kids who want to grow up really fast and want to be adults and think they know things, and then when you deprive them from them, maybe some people will still do it, not knowing the consequence. Even just psychology, sociology, when and we talked about this. As soon as you tell us what not to do, we want to do it. And that even just biblical. God, you see it multiple times. God will tell his people what he wants to do so they could best live, so they could not have to deal with certain temptations, and yet we still do it. And I think that just goes back to that fall of man. As soon as that happened, as soon as we hear instructions, we want to go against it.
Oh, yeah.
That sinful
That
nature.
rebellious nature, yeah.
Yeah, but then psychology looks at that too. But it just like, they say the same thing, but once again, we want to discredit one and act like it doesn't even exist when we believe what they're saying. Maybe the way they word it, to an extent, we don't believe.
I get what you're saying, and I think it's interesting, like the things that some what we call like Christian. I'm not gonna say Christian, like some religious or some holy people, because even like Christians do it, like Muslims do it, or like other faiths will do it. Like there's good things in life, like just out there, and we always feel like the Lord has to be like strictly exclusive and cut off from things. Now, when he calls us to be different, not of this world, like that doesn't mean like, oh, there's some good in the stock market. Like I can't do that though. There can't be any Christian stock marketers. Or like, oh, there's some good, stretches out there for your back. I can't do any of those because like, those are demonic. And it's like, you don't have to do yoga. You don't have to do specific poses to worship like Buddha. But you can stretch your back and be healthy, So there's some unhealthy, unstretched people because they feel like, oh, I can't do yoga, I can't do stretches, like, no, there's no Christian stretchers, or like
even meditation.
Meditation.
That's one that like no. There's some people be like no, that's just not. Christians don't do that.
And it's like I didn't tell you to sit there with crystals and fold your arms up and like smell some sage. The Lord tells us even in the scriptures to meditate on the word. And it's like you put it in your mind, you put it in your spirit, and you focus on it. That's just what the word means. But that perfect example, people try to like feel like that. And so the same thing with psychology. It's like I was told one day on Instagram, there's this like super Christian, which is great. Like I love her energy. She like goes and she's just always just trying to like remind people like hell and brimstone is real. Like you need to get straightened up. Like if you're gonna die. Right, but then she's putting like this post up, and it was like everyone who does this, like it was like cursing, like porn watchers, like yoga, this, that, that, and the other. In the end, it said psychologists, like, all going to hell, you're going to die. And it was like, yo, chill out. I was with you till we got there. And it's like, now, there are some, like, dark things that have happened with all of that, but, like, same thing with, like, the church in general. Like, you think, like, we're going to hell for being Christians because, like, the original Christians, like, touch children or whatever. It's like, nah, like, everything has, like, had to grow. And, like, if the more you put genuine godliness in things, like, it'll work even better because he made all things, you know? So it's like, I'm not saying, like, let me just clarify. I'm not saying you can, like, put God in all things and now it's okay. Like, for example, there's not going to be, like, Christian drugs or whatever. Like, Christian drug dealers. Like, yeah, man, may Christ be with you. Take this dime or whatever. Or it's not going to be, like, Christian porn. You know?
Oh, I was going to say Christian drug dealer. It's that. I feel bad about saying this now. It's going to be that what is it? I haven't seen the commercial in a while. Those Holy Rocks.
Oh, the Holy Rocks. Wow.
Holy Rocks.
Okay. That's crazy.
Let me stop.
Burning bush, huh? No, okay, so anyways, right? So that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you can just inject the word Christ or Jesus into anything and to be perfect, but things that are genuinely meant for one's health and well-being and good, and like, that's why God gave us discernment. So people, like, trying to just, like, cast aside things because they feel like, oh, like, that can't be of the Lord, like, you know, whatever. But then they have no real understanding of it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, when it comes to psychology or mental health in general, it's like, it's starting to be, like, said, people don't just talk about psychology anymore. But it's basically just like God put this machine, this computer in us. It's our brain. And it's how it's connected to our other wiring, to our soul, that's like our Bluetooth or whatever to him, mm-hmm. and then to our body, that's our hardware. And it's like, how does this all work together, and how can we use it to the best of our ability to navigate through this world that we've been put in? And so it's like, you know, God can be all within that. He gave it all to us. Mm-hmm. You know, it's back when they believed that science and philosophy and Christ had to be separate, like they couldn't exist together. And then now we have, like, you know, top-notch, like, Christian scientists who, like, actually found out different parts of our body, like, represent, they look like different depictions of Christ or whatever, like how, like, some of our cells make crosses that are responsible for, like, regeneration. Jesus, like, came back off of a cross, you know, just things like that, little things that God, like, just puts little Easter eggs around, you know, or like scientists or archaeologists that discovered, like, the Ark up in the mountains, mm-hmm. you know, from when it flooded, or like bones of whales, like places where they shouldn't be because the whole world was covered with water, you know, things like that. Mm-hmm. The more you incorporate your God into everything you do, even if you, like he says, like, in all things, you know, put me in all things, put me first in all things and everything. I'm trying to find the verse. I gotta look it up.
All right. Actually, first let's not, because we still got that verse that we didn't even talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
But you had it up earlier. I don't know if it disappeared.
I think it's here on Google. Yeah, I lost it. We were talking about I got you.
Yeah. So before we just get,
I think it's Matthew 18. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not just dead. We're looking up some verses that we had that incorporated what we were talking about today, and we had it before it cut off, but then we had to get jumped back in. Mm-hmm.
And then we just got too wrapped up in the conversation.
Exactly.
In my mind, I still was thinking about it, but I was just like, we'll get to it.
So there's two different ones. Can you look up Matthew 18:6?
I got that.
Got you. Because I got Luke 17:2. Because, you know, it's the same interaction, just from two different guys' perspectives. Mm-hmm. All right. So in this version, for this verse, it says, it would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. And let me see, that's one translation. Where is the other one? Oh, just like all these different. We got New King James Version. Okay, so it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea than he should offend one of these little ones. So some backstory on that. We were talking about, like, raising children or, like, being interactive in a child's life, mm-hmm. and how God, like, lets us do that to be, like, a model, like, for how he treats us. And this specific instance, they were at, like, a feast type thing, and everyone was just trying to come up to Jesus asking questions, and then a child came up, and they were all trying to come talk to Jesus, but they were like, adults were just being adults, was like, nah, get out of here, like, you're not gonna ask him that. But then he basically was explaining to the people like it'd be basically better for you to just go ahead and drown than for you to cause one of God's children to stumble, especially the little ones. And like he just basically went into all that, and basically what he's saying is that like what I hear when I see that, because he touches all of us differently, but it's like children are important. They're like they're the future. Like they're everything that he puts into you, you put into them, and you get like this opportunity to like raise them and grow them and all these good things. But it's like they're precious. Like who would attack innocence? How can you claim to be one of his? Like how can you claim to be one of Jesus's people, and harm innocence? Like that's just like the truest form of evil. And that's what children are. And so to cause them to stumble, like they're relying on you. So like if you teach them the wrong thing to do, or like if you try to mislead them or touch them or do anything inappropriate, it's like you are embodying the truest form of evil. And so it's like it'd just be better for you to just go ahead and die than to like do that, because it's not gonna be good for you.
And that even ties back to what we were even talking about with, like how we talked about with psychology, and how it all ties into what Christ said too. Is because, for example, when we were just talking about when we were just talking about beating a child, for example, if you physically are angry enough to beat a child, and feel like that's the way to punish them, what are you teaching the child? You're teaching them that when I'm angry, I need to beat someone and cause them pain too. And that's not what God wants us to do at all. But you doing that teaches the child to do that, and they start to normalize that and start to believe that. That's how come too, going back to psychology and just biblically, when you teach children certain things that aren't of God, when you teach children certain things that aren't of God, it starts to be a part of them because they're doing what they know. Going back to Saul did what he knew because he wasn't taught. And when he did learn, it never really stayed in the Bible, but I guarantee he still had some struggles with his past. Because as soon as we open that door is open, there are certain things we have to battle with and fight with. And now going back to the other verse in Matthew 18, we have when Jesus, and this is the same verse and the same story, but this is just another interpretation of it. So Jesus called a little child and had him stand among them, and he said, I tell you the truth, unless you change and become like this little child, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes the little child like this in my name is welcome to me. But if anyone causes this little one, to stumble or to sin, it would be better for him to have a large milestone hung around his neck and be thrown in the depths of the sea. Now, as I was even just reading that, I was just thinking about different things. Like, and this goes back to what we were even just saying. Just to be a leader, to be an adult. Christ even tells us we gotta humble ourselves like a child. Cause I feel like even when it comes to gathering knowledge in the world we live in, we want to gather everything. We want to be correct about everything we say. And going back to what you were even saying too, the world we live in is so jacked up that when we try to gather everything, we might find out some stuff, not biblically, but just stuff that's done in the world that would be like, why should I trust anyone? And like you were just saying, I get it, but I humble myself and I just rely on God, and God's gonna take care of me. Just like a child, if they're raised correctly, relies on their parent and doesn't have to worry about any of the outside stuff. When they're raised correctly, they have their full trust on the parent, and their parent has their best intentions for them. And that's how we are with God, and God will never cause any harm to us. And that's how come too, he says for us to humble ourselves and just seek him. We don't gotta seek our own, we can, but there's certain things we don't gotta seek, like, I need to know exactly this, when this happens, why this happened, why that happened. God just said just trust in him and humble yourself that he's in control and will take care of you. And honestly, I feel like, and I actually just talked to my class about this too, where you see some people who are homeless, some people who are on drugs now, who were once doctors, who were once lawyers. Some of these people found out some things in the world that they just can't wrap their head around, and be like, oh, and it just kind of just messes with their mind now that they know how some stuff that goes on in the world. And because they know, or because they seeked it and wanted to seek that extra knowledge, it kind of, they can't unsee it, certain things, instead of just trusting in God. This world, like you just said, this world is a jacked up place. There's so much that goes on that we don't even know, that we don't need to know. Honestly, I'm just going to trust in God. If I'm trusting in God, I know all things will work for God's good, and I have nothing to worry about. I don't need to go be chasing off conspiracy theorists or theories.
I feel like you're leading to something, and you kind of sparked something in me as you were talking. I just thought about there's two verses that just kind of fit together, and when you were saying like just trying to go out and get everything you should know. Now, it's like it kind of how it lines up is like he tells us to be like children being inquisitive, thirsty for like learning more, like excited for the things, and just willing to be protected and loved by those who have rule over them. And so we're supposed to be the same way in Christ, but you just made me think when you're talking about just going and try to grab everything, right? So here I'm gonna look up the verse, and the one where it's like, in all you're getting understanding.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So and with all thy getting, get understanding. Or say another way, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thy own understanding. So it's crazy because within that verse, it's like...
Oh, what verse is it too? So
Proverbs 3 and 5.
There you go.
So with that, right, he didn't tell, like, it seems contrasting, but it's not. It's like, it's directing. So it's not, when he says lean not into your own understanding, it doesn't mean like, okay, so I just got an understanding for what? Like, I'm not supposed to, like, believe or understand what I just thought or, like, yada, yada. And it's like, you're actually not, like, that's all you have for the moment, so you got to trust in that. But that's why you're supposed to spend so much of your life trying to guide what you know, what you understand, and what you believe to be as close to God as possible. Like, to be exactly lined up with what he has, so that when you're leaning on what you think or what you know, you're not leaning on your own understanding at all. That's why he tells you in all you're getting, get an understanding. Like, don't get your understanding. Don't get his understanding. Don't get her understanding. Get an understanding. And get an understanding of, like, what I have for you. And get, like, understand things the way I am. I know you can't fully do that, but the closer you get to that, it's like you won't be leaning just on your mind. And I think that's what a lot of people get scared of when it comes to psychology, is that, like, oftentimes people forget that, and that, like, these verses are like any other things that are like this. And it's like they just start to, like, oh, I got it now. I got a degree in this, or oh, I'm studying this, and it's like, oh, I know this, that, there, and the other. It's like you're gathering too much knowledge, right? And it's like, almost like biting the apple, so to speak, metaphorically. And you're just kind of like, doing things and saying things, because it does give you an edge on the world if you don't know that, like, you get tired at 6 p.m. every day, but this person, like, doesn't. It's like, if I know that about myself, I'm going to do all my work before 6 p.m. And when you get tired, I'm going to keep going. It's little stuff like that. Sorry if I confused you. Talking about how, like, while people get afraid of psychology, or especially, like, dealing with, like, being a Christian and, understanding psychology. And then, like, again, like, being like children. So it's like people don't know how to, like, learn and gather these things and put it into their kids. Like, they're afraid of these things, so they feel like it's either not godly, or, like, I don't need to get all that information, or yada, yada, yada. But it's like they'll use this verse sometimes as like a crutch, and it's like don't lean on your own understanding. And so when we say like utilize the tricks and the tools and the blessings that psychology and like mental health has given us, especially like when you're raising children and trying to teach them how to go and interact with other people and how to be within the world and but not in the world but around them and how to interact, it's like if you get a better understanding, like so in all you're getting, everything you're out there just absorbing, if you can understand the way the Lord handles you and the way his mind works, and the way that like he made your mind to work, and it's like this is how did he interact with people. Now you understand that and you interact with your child that way, and then their child, like that child interacts with the people around them and other people's kids, and it just trickles, it goes down from God to you to the kid to the kids back up to their parents, and it's just like, I feel like little things like that, God is set up on kind of like a plug and play system. It's like if you apply these, it's just going to like spread. And it's the whole goal is for like us to be like closer back to him, that connection we had, that perfection we had. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I feel like understanding the psychology of Christ would really help you with that. Like what made him think the way he did? What made him come down here and do the things he did? Why am I supposed to do that? And sometimes it's for some people, they can't handle that. It's not about why. It's just about like that he did it. So I understand why some people don't want to know it, because it's just like he did it, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. But if you understand why and you understand like how, now it's understandable. Like, okay, well, I know I'm not perfect, but here's how I'm going to make it so I can do that. Mm-hmm. I understand me to get myself close to that. Because like if there's something wrong in your car, but you don't know what it is, and you just you're messing with your tires, but it's really your battery, you're not getting anywhere, If you're messing with your engine, but it's really your windshield wipers just aren't working. Like, first of all, you got to understand your problem. You got to understand what you're dealing with. Then you got to understand how each part of it is built, so I know what I'm going to do to it now, So I know how it needs to be fixed. Something that's bent because it's too curved to the left isn't going to be fixed if you just keep turning it to the left. You got to turn it to the right, And that's how it is with our brains and with our minds. Mm-hmm. And all of that in relation, like, we're broken. We're away from perfection. How do we get closer to that? Understanding my mind and my heart. What temperament do I have? Like, what is wrong with me? Why do I do these things? And then, like, avoid that. Learn the tricks and tools. Work around that. And then now we're back to where we're supposed to be, Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I think that's all I got for me. Or you?
Yeah, and I think we're about to wrap it up, too. But even just that verse you just said, too, when the lean on your own understanding. Mm-hmm. And that even ties back into
and it actually goes in longer if you want to read the rest of it.
No, I mean it just ties back into what we were just talking about when we do something because it just seems, I forgot how you worded it. It seems all right to us at the moment. It makes sense to us. If we're leaning on our own understanding, I'm hungry, so I'm gonna steal because it's making sense to us. Mm-hmm. But we can't lean to our own understanding. Stuff will make sense, but some stuff that makes sense isn't what God has in store for us. Yeah. Devil doesn't give us something and it's like, oh, I'm gonna give you this, and it's not gonna make sense, because if it doesn't make sense, it's not. We wouldn't do it. He'll do something and be like, that person just hit you. You're gonna hit him back. That makes sense.
And it's ironic because him being the author of confusion, mm-hmm. ironically comes the most, how do you say this? The most sensibly. And it's because it's a ploy. It's like the whole goal is confusion. Mm-hmm. But if I make you believe something makes sense that way, mm-hmm. and you make me believe something makes sense this way, but we're both supposed to be going that way straight, and I have you going left and him going right, mm-hmm. Now we have confusion and we're both distracted from the main goal, which is to go straight. Mm-hmm. And so it's just crazy how he does that, little things like that. Mm-hmm. So now that's like something that we consider a psychological tactic. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't understand that, if you have no concept of it, mm-hmm. you don't know how to avoid that. You don't know how to understand or read a room and know, okay, the devil was in here working. Like, you're over here on plan B, mm-hmm. when we're not even in the book yet. We're on numbers, and you're over here on plan B. Like, mm-hmm. chill out, And so that everything's getting stirred up, and know how to just come in and mediate that and do it the way God would, and just mm-hmm. like, hey, how about we all just refocus and remember the goal is this. Mm-hmm. We're all here together. Because the devil will come in swiftly, man. He'll come in smoothly, just stir up everything.
And I think that just ties into anything in life in general. It's just like, even if the goal is this, the devil will have you either go this way or that way, or even that way. And then if we don't even go the direction God wants us to go, even if we just stay still and don't even move,
Exactly.
there's only one direction we should go, and the devil will give us 5 other directions to go. And it's just like, we gotta be intentional and be going back to what you said. Just know the word of God, and know what God has in store for us. And it even ties back into actually what I was talking about in the beginning with just I know where God wants I know where God wants me to be and where He wants me to go, and it's like I'm doing other stuff, and the other stuff isn't necessarily negative, but what God has in store for me, what He's called me to do, I'm getting there, but like slowly. But I'd be like, okay, let me focus on this, God. God, I'm gonna do this. I'm putting my trust in You. I'm doing this, and I could do it. It's more challenging. It's pulling me away from You more so, and things like that. So now I'm talking about it. It's just like, logically, it makes sense to keep on doing it, because it's like, oh, I could provide for my family more and do this more. But God has something bigger for me. So I need to go where He wants me to go, even though the other one makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy though, like how
He gives you those God placed steps and you stepping off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Keep getting rerouted, huh? Stepping off your G.P.S. I'm sorry. One more thing I wanted to clarify before we go, because I feel like I said something that might confuse someone that wouldn't really understand, like, yet, that's new. The only reason, I'm not saying that the devil makes more sense than God. What I'm saying is, it's a whole lot easier to understand him, like when he comes and speaks to you, oftentimes, because when you're not in God's word as you should be, or like how you're supposed to be, because when you take something perfect and try to put it together, it's like when you take two different systems, right? Mm-hmm. It's like if you took like a $3,000 like guitar and tried to plug it into like a dollar store amp aux cord and put in your like something like that. Mm-hmm. The systems don't really work, and so it can get the job done, but you need something to get closer and closer to the better thing for it to work better. And so the devil comes and meets you down in whatever funk you're in, and will just come whisper something that, like, he knows you, he studies us, so he'll come and whisper something that just like makes sense to you because he knows where you're at already. Mm-hmm. But you're not supposed to be there, and so that's why it seems like it makes more sense. So,
and I think it did make sense when you said it, because the devil, when he does say something, he knows that we're sinful creatures, sinful by nature. So he doesn't even have to try hard to just like, oh yeah, that person hit you and you should hit them back. It makes sense. Compared to, it's harder to wrap your head around, this person hurt me and I need to love them.
Exactly.
It's harder to make sense out of that. But when you know when you know God's word, you can make sense out of it. But even though you can make sense out of it, and this even ties back into, Christ knew this too when he loved on people. He understood why they did what they did, but he still loves on them. So I think it did make sense with what the devil throws at us. It will make more sense, because it's just like, especially if we don't know God's word, because it's just like we're already sinful, and it's just like he just kind of just pushes us a little more, like, like, oh yeah, if you don't do this, if you don't steal the food, how are you gonna feed your family? That makes sense compared to, I'm gonna trust in God, and it's not magically, God's gonna make a way, even though I don't know the way. It's that right there. I don't know the way, but it's gonna happen, compared to, if you steal the food, you know how you're gonna get it. it goes back into that leaning on your own understanding. It's just like you have to, when you trust in God, sometimes you don't know how it's going to happen.
You don't know.
And I think that's where we get hung up on being humans. It's just like when we don't know how it's going to happen, the devil comes in and says like, do this and this and this.
And I think that comes from, and I'll just try to end here, kind of keep like growing, but it comes from basically that if I gave it all to you and you knew how everything was going to play out, you're going to feel like back to children. When we're all cleaning the house or doing something or we're making a meal and they go, hey, I want to help, because they know, hey, we're making cookies. Cookies require this, and this. And you just go and start grabbing all the sugar and the butter and the eggs and just start throwing everything on the table because you know this is what's required for the goal. If I tell you what we're doing too soon and you feel like you want to help, you want to be a part of it, right? You're going to start putting things out that we don't even need yet. I'm not even on dessert, right? I'm making the greens and you have sugar on the table, you know? And we would do that. I feel like that's why God doesn't come at us that way, because we wouldn't rely on him anymore. We would try to start doing it ourselves. We try to start going in there and putting our own hand in the pot when it's like the whole goal is for you to rely on me, you know? So if I tell you everything that we're about to do, if I showed you, oh, this is how it's going to work out immediately, sometimes he does give you a little hint just to let you know I'm real, I'm here, I'm with you. But without that, like, he doesn't hide it, but he works on his own and he just drops it to you. It's like, here you go. You didn't have to worry about that. Right? Because now you're going to start worrying about how it's going to work out. Now you're going to start playing in my business and you're going to start touching it. Now it's not going to be right.
And you're going to mess it up.
Exactly. Where if you would have just let me do it, it would have been good. And the devil doesn't care if you mess something up.
Yeah, he wants you to mess it up. That's how come he says, like, okay, you're praying to God and you said you're going to give it to him. Come up with this backup plan just in case. And that's it right there.
Plant the seed of doubt. Maybe. What if it don't work out?
So come up with a backup plan. And then it's funny that when we come up with the backup plan, we're not even focusing on God. We're already operating in that backup plan. It's just like, okay.
It's like I went through all the trouble of making it. I might as well use it. It's like, no. Okay.
But let us end in prayer.
All right.
Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you for just coming and being with us here today, Lord. Lord, I just thank you for the knowledge you just provided, Lord, and just the wisdom you've given us, Lord. Lord, as we spoke, Lord, let you just touch our listeners, Lord, and let them just lean on to you, Lord, not on their own understanding, Lord, but on you, Lord, for we know that we all are faulty, Lord, and that we all make mistakes, Lord, and the devil is just waiting for us to doubt. Lord, I just pray that you just cover us, Lord, and bless us from our head to the soles of our feet, Lord. Just have us stay focused on you, Lord, and not go left nor right, but be completely focused on what you called us to do, Lord. For we know this world has so many things that will try to distract us, Lord, but let us stay focused on you and remember what you have called us to do, Lord. Lord, I just thank you for all you've done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.